Well, welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast, everybody. Hey, this is your host, Matt Breckwald, and thank you very much for joining us here on episode number 801 and on our YouTube channel. Well, I don't know if you've ever taken any metal in to be recycled, but there is some fascinating equipment that operates in those recycling yards, and today we are going to speak with a young man who started during high school working in one of these yards and almost immediately got promoted twice and got to operate some of that rather large equipment. Really fascinating interview, fascinating stuff that he got to work with, and we're going to start that for you right now. Joining me today is Dalton Potter, and he's coming to us from Lakeland College, where he is studying ag business and supply, and he's a former chapter sentinel from Neoga High School in Neoga, Illinois. Dalton, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you.
Hey, you bet. I'm glad we finally get to speak. I've been looking forward to talking with you. All right. Well, Dalton, let's do this. I would love to take just a moment just to ask you a few questions about you, just so our audience can kind of get to know who they're listening to. Would that be all right?
Yeah, that's all right.
All right. Well, how old are you now?
I am 19 years old.
19. Okay. So did you just graduate just about a year ago then?
I graduated in May of, this year. Or last year, yeah.
Okay. May of 19?
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And when you're not at school, when you're at home, are you on a farm, are you in town, or something kind of in the middle of those two?
Normally, whenever I'm not at work or school, I'm just at home on the home farm.
Oh, okay. So is it like a row crop farm or a livestock farm or both, or describe that to us just a little bit?
It's a farrow to finish hog farm.
Okay. Really? So is it farrow to finish? So you guys are farrowing out all your own sows there?
Yeah.
Okay, very interesting. How long has that operation been in your family?
Ever since my dad was about 16, he's had hogs. So, I mean, we've had the big operation for about 20 years or so now.
No kidding. Okay, very good. And are you farrowing and doing this on a contract basis, or do you guys sell all your own finished pigs individually?
We sell all our own individually.
Very cool. Wow. Interesting business. So how many sows are we talking about?
We have about 500 sows.
Wow. So that is a lot of pigs every year. That's got to keep you busy.
For the most part, it does. But
I bet. Now, how long have you been part of the FFA, Dalton?
I've only been a part of the FFA for about 3 years.
For 3 years. Okay, so you didn't start right away. Did you join your sophomore year then?
I joined my junior year because we had, so for the first 2 years of my high school career, we didn't have FFA, actually.
Okay.
We were a restart chapter on my junior year, so I finally got to join.
Got it. So had you had an FFA chapter prior to that, you would have joined, say, your freshman year or something like that?
Oh, definitely.
Now, was this a situation where your school at one time had an FFA chapter and then they lost it and they brought it back, or was this the very first time for your school?
We used to have one, and then the year that I turned a freshman in high school, they took it away for some budget cuts, and luckily they brought it back my junior year.
Okay, very good. So you only got 2 years of exposure, but I know that were you a proficiency award winner in the state of Illinois?
Yes, I was in 2019.
Okay, so, well, congratulations on that, by the way, and obviously you made the most of the 2 years that you did have in the FFA.
Yeah, I tried to.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Well, that's a big accomplishment. It's really cool that you did that. Well, very interesting. Why did you want to join the FFA in the first place?
I just had grown up on a farm, and I don't know, I just knew I had a passion for agriculture in some way, shape, or form, so I figured that would be the club to join if there was one.
Well, it certainly is a good one if you got a passion for agriculture, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, who are your FFA advisors there at Neoga High?
Well, my first year in FFA, it was Miss Michaela Smith, which is now Michaela Greathouse,
Mm-hmm.
but currently it is Mr. Cody Carmen.
All right. Well, thank you very much for mentioning those folks. I really appreciate acknowledging them. I want to take a quick moment here, Dalton, and acknowledge a couple of our great sponsors and everybody. I'm going to start off talking about Powder River Livestock Handling Equipment. You know, they have just been with us. They have been supporting this show. They've been supporting youth in agriculture and agriculture in general by being part of this show for years now. They are an absolutely fantastic sponsor, and they make fantastic livestock handling equipment. We use Powder River right here on our farm in Idaho. We've got a Powder River squeeze chute sitting out there in the snow right now. Luckily, I did not have to use it today as that snow was coming down. But they make absolutely fantastic equipment. I've toured their factory, seen how they built everything, and am just such a fan of the company and just honored to have them as a sponsor. Please check them out at powderriver.com. And then, of course, Lacrosse Boots. Done right since 1897, Lacrosse Footwear has been making quality boots for hunting, working, and tending the land for over a century. We're using Lacrosse every day on our farm here in Idaho. We use the Alpha Range boots. And I understand, Dalton, you wear Lacrosse boots yourself.
Yeah, Lacrosse boots are definitely my go-to as far as whenever I need to go out in the mud or in the hog barns. They're comfy, they're warm, and they're especially good for hunting whenever you have to cross creeks and go through mud.
Well, awesome. I love it when I have a guest on the show who is using the products that I'm sitting here suggesting that other people use. But you say all the things that I say about them too. I looked for a long time for the right neoprene-based rubber boot and finally settled on Lacrosse. I don't know which pair you're using, but it sounds like you found the right pair in Lacrosse yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, everybody, go on over to lacrossefootwear.com. They've got whatever you need. They've got it, and I guarantee you are going to be happy. Check them out, lacrossefootwear.com. All right. Well, Dalton, let's talk about your supervised agricultural experience. So what have you been doing?
My supervised agriculture experience was it was actually on my job at TNT Recycling. And it has truly been a fun experience, and I've learned so much through my SAE. But whenever I started at TNT in 2017, I was just a basic shop worker that was helping out in the summer months. But it didn't take very long, maybe 2 or 3 weeks, until my supervisor decided he wanted to try me out for a bigger role in the company. He saw a role that needed to be filled out in the scrapyard, so he tested me out on a couple of the heavy equipment he had out in the scrapyard. So after about a week of training in those heavy equipment, I got promoted to heavy equipment operator. Mm-hmm. And then after about 6 months of experience behind me, my supervisor again gave me a promotion to assistant manager because he liked my work ethic and how well I treated fellow employees and then customers.
Oh, wow. Well, how old were you when you started doing that?
I was only 16 whenever I started, but
and then
I was a heavy equipment operator at 17.
Okay, wow. And then how old were you when you started supervising?
I didn't quite supervise. I was the assistant manager whenever I think I turned 18.
Okay, and that's what I meant. Sorry about that. So you were 18 when you got promoted to assistant manager.
Yeah.
Really cool. My goodness. So your boss obviously saw something in you.
Yeah.
Very cool. Now, I've got to ask you, because whenever I go to our recycling place, they've got a piece of equipment that's just so cool. It's this huge magnet that hangs off of this, I don't know if you'd call it a crane, probably a crane. And it is
excavator.
Yeah, probably an excavator. It's unbelievable what it can pick up. Did you get to operate one of those things?
Yep, I operate one of those almost every day.
Wow, that is really, really cool. That's got to be fun.
It is. It's very fun.
So I've always wondered, because I've never, I'm not going to stop the guy while he's working to ask him all my curiosity questions. So now that I've got you on the show, I can ask you. But when I look at the excavator with the magnet hanging off of it, I don't see any, and I don't think there could be any external power source, which means that magnet has to be powered off of the power coming off that excavator. Is that correct?
Kind of.
Okay.
On the back of the excavator or inside the excavator, there's a small generator that powers that magnet.
And how much power does it need for it to have that that kind of magnetism and that lifting ability?
I'm really not sure. I'll have to check it out next time I look inside, but I'm not really sure.
So there's actually a separate generator that's running, and that's creating the power for that.
Yep.
That is fascinating. And so you must have a switch inside the cab there where you can activate or deactivate that magnet.
On one of the joysticks in the excavator, there's a little button, and you just press it, and it turns it on and off.
Okay, really interesting. And I'm always curious, too. I bring stuff in and I dump it off, but, for example, the magnet, it can't pick up aluminum, right?
No, it can only pick up steel.
Only steel. And so I don't know. Sometimes I'll pull out, I've got a load of stuff. It's all mixed together. So what do you guys do when you have a mix like that? Some steel, some aluminum, it's all mixed together. How do you segregate that? Do you just use the magnet to remove all the steel, then push the aluminum aside, or how does that work?
Well, if it's not completely separated, then I'll just go over the trailer or the vehicle bed with the magnet, and it'll pull out most of the steel.
Okay.
And then whatever is still left on the trailer or vehicle, I'll weigh it separately for whatever it is.
Okay. Interesting stuff. Well, now how did you come up with this job? How did you get started there at TNT?
It's actually kind of an interesting story because my older brother had recently worked there whenever he was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And about 2 years later, whenever I was looking for a job, they had wanted my older brother to come back because they liked his work ethic and they wanted him to be the manager.
Okay.
But instead he was like, well, I got a job right now, so I can give you the number to my brother if you'd like. So I was like, okay, I'll take that.
Okay.
So I went in there and asked if they needed any help, and they hired me on the spot.
That was great. Had you ever operated equipment that large before you got that promotion?
Not anything larger than like a tractor outside or like
Mm-hmm.
a grinding tractor.
Was it difficult to learn, or were you nervous to operate something that large when you were first starting out?
Actually, I was really eager to get in those. I mean, as a younger kid, I just looked at those and I'm like, man, I really want to be inside that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was eager to get in there, and I learned, and I just paid attention to what my supervisor had to tell me, and I just learned pretty quick, actually.
Yeah, very cool. So I'm always curious as well at those places, how do you determine on a day-by-day basis what you're paying for things like aluminum or steel or whatever it may be? Is there something that you or somebody at the company checks before you open up for a day to figure out what you're paying?
It just kind of depends on what the company we're selling to is paying for it right now.
Okay. Gotcha. Now, is there one item that people bring in that when you see it coming in on a trailer or in the back of a pickup or something like that where you're like, oh, I hate dealing with those?
I think just refrigerators, they don't have enough steel on them to really pick up with the magnet, and they're just kind of too bulky for you to take them off by hand. So I don't know. It's just kind of a pain whenever you see them come in.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, your proficiency award in the state of Illinois, it was related back to your job at TNT Recycling, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, what was I guess the title of the proficiency award?
I am the 2019 Environmental Science Natural Resource Management Proficiency Award winner.
So, it's all about the recycling then, obviously.
Yeah, it's just all about recycling your natural resources,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of keeping in regard of your precious metals.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting. So when you were filling out your record book and you were applying to be that proficiency contestant, I guess, in the state of Illinois, what was it that you were emphasizing in that record book in terms of fitting into this particular category?
Just that I was preserving precious metals so they didn't have to be like taken up from the earth.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what had to go into me actually winning the award was just the amount of hours in a very rare field. Hours.
Yeah, I guess that would be a very rare field. There's probably not. I don't know if there's an. I mean, there's 700,000 plus FFA students. I don't know if there's another one doing that job.
I know there's a couple doing this job, but
Okay.
I don't know if they go to the extent that I do.
Interesting stuff. So, could you have applied for a proficiency award in a different category? Like, for example, just a straight placement or ag mechanics or something like that? Like, did you have kind of a few choices and you chose this particular category?
I don't know, it's kind of a rare category, so
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it just fit right into where I was wanting to go.
You bet. Now, what have you learned in doing this job? What have you learned about precious metals and things like that?
I just simple things like being able to tell like what the difference between red brass and yellow brass are. Whenever normally at my naked eye, I definitely could not tell what the difference is between, I don't know, any metal, to be honest. But
so you've learned to kind of segregate out what you need to for the purposes of the job. Do you have to be on the lookout for people who have stolen stuff and they're coming in to sell it, like copper wire and things like that?
yeah, there's been a couple times where we've had some stolen stuff before, and regularly there's detectives or, I don't know, some kind of police officer that comes into the office and asks about this certain person or if they sold this kind of material.
Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff. Wow, that's a fascinating job. I would love. There should be a fantasy camp where you can climb in pieces of equipment like that and just try them out. I would love to try out that magnet and see, what the biggest thing I could lift would be. What is the biggest thing you lifted with that?
With the magnet, I can, if it's solid enough, I can probably pick up around a ton.
Really? Wow. Okay. And I of course, am obsessing over the magnet, but you probably get to operate a lot of other equipment where you pick up stuff with a claw and things like that, where you can really, really have some fun.
Yeah, just like we also have like a bucket with a thumb on it.
Mm-hmm.
With that, you can pick up, I don't know, entire flattened grain bins or entire like tractor cabs, all sorts of things.
Wow. Interesting stuff. Well, let's talk about what you're doing in college really quick. So, first of all, is Lakeland College, is it close enough to home that you're still able to be working at T&T Recycling, or did you have to let that go for when you went away to college?
No, Lakeland College is actually like 15 minutes away from where I live.
Okay.
So I just drive to work in the morning at T&T, and then after I'm done, I'll go to school.
All right. Now, how did you choose your major of ag business and supply?
Well, it was just, I don't know, for a while I had been thinking about going into heavy equipment operating, which is naturally what I would do because I operate heavy equipment almost every day. But I saw more of a passion with like this than I did with heavy equipment operating. Plus there was more jobs and there was more of a need for anybody in the agricultural field. So I just took it as, there's more jobs in the future for agriculture, so why not go get a degree in agriculture?
Sure. Now, when the title of your major, ag business and supply, ag business to me is very obvious what that is, but the supply that's thrown in there, so why do they put that in there? What additional will you learn so it's ag business and supply?
I think it's put in there because through Lakeland you have an SOE, which is a supervised occupational experience.
Okay.
For most of my time at Lakeland, it will be kind of a hands-on kind of training where I actually have to go and get a job with an ag business for like 10 weeks at a time.
Okay.
So you're actually kind of learning like the ins and outs of agriculture through, I don't know, any business.
Sure. And so will that take you away from TNT recycling during that time?
Yeah, it will.
Yeah.
I'll be moving on to a different job here soon.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, before we wrap this up, Dalton, I want to ask your advice for other students out there when it comes to getting a job, even as a teenager who is under the age of 18. What advice would you have for other students when it comes to performing so well that your boss wants to promote you more than one time?
Basically, it's just being determined and putting in the work. It will always pay off, whether it be in life or through your job. Just if you work hard and if you keep your head down, you will be successful.
Very good. Well, Dalton, this has been great. Thank you very much for indulging me in my curiosity about that big magnet. I really enjoyed hearing your whole story.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here, everybody. Really appreciate you joining us on the Off-Farm Income Podcast YouTube channel. And as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.